Okay, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed the break and got a chance to check out some of the vendors. They'll be around all weekend though, but some of the good stuff may not be. Okay, so now Kewaunee Lapseritis will be giving his talk on interdimensionalism, the real secret to the Sasquatch ET phenomenon. Okay, so I'll let him, I'm sure everybody here knows who Kewaunee is. Of course, the author of The Psychic Sasquatch and the Sasquatch People, and none of us would be here today if it wasn't for him, so, yeah. Okay, here you go, honey. Good luck.
Thank you. I'm glad you're all here. You know, it's been 61 years that I've been doing Sasquatch research. And 38 of those years, they've been talking to me, and where the first encounter is when an ET and a Sasquatch talked to me simultaneously, which was in east central Wisconsin at the time. So all this time, many people had referred to me as the Sasquatch Whisperer, and I don't really seek out titles or anything. I'm just doing the work and wanting to share the reality, the truth, and stop this monster hunting and this kind of nonsense by mainstream researchers that have never advanced one iota in the last 60 years. They just haven't done anything with all the DNA and everything. And when they do DNA, like on hair, they don't believe the results because it isn't what they believe. Well, this has nothing to do with belief. It has to do with myself experienced over 1,000 times since 1979, plus the documentation of 408 percipients that have had telepathic contact with the psychic Sasquatch. 3 of them were physicians, 1 was an attorney, 3 were college professors, and 2 were scientists, and then people from all walks of life. So William James said it takes only 1 white crow to prove that all crows are not black. Well, analogously speaking, I have 408 white crows. So I'm not sure how many more I need to get people's attention that the Sasquatch are an evolved people living inside of an animal-like body in order to survive in raw nature. There's so much controversy going on out there of who they are and if they're dangerous, and they're cannibals, and they'll do all kinds of crazy things. And this is, a lot of it's rumor, and a lot of it is from history. In the humans on this planet have exercised cannibalism over the years, but it'd be really difficult to find a tribe somewhere in the South Pacific, because I don't believe there is any anymore, because they stopped all that. And but no one is cursing out humans and saying stay away from the humans because, hey, look, historically they ate people. And I'm sure I lived on the Amazon amongst the Tukuna Indians in Upper Amazonia, a place called the Upper Rio Leretiacu. And they have a Sasquatch type down there, but they're not, they don't know what's going on. They don't have Bigfoot clubs and those kinds of things. So they just tell the truth. And science says, well, you can't trust what people see. So even though they give you all this information, when you interview them, it cannot be trusted. Well, how many times, you know, I'm a social scientist with 4 degrees, and I look for patterns. And the pattern is that there's a psychic Sasquatch with a UFO connection. And because it sounds kooky to some people, especially initially, it's dismissed. And guess what? I did the same thing in 1975 when I just happened to pick up a magazine in a store, a UFO magazine that I hadn't seen in years, and I just casually picked it up, and there were 2 articles in there on Sasquatch. But people were speculating. Nobody had experienced them. They were just speculating and saying this person thought they saw this and that and so on. Well, none of the people I interviewed thought anything other than they were emotional, very emotional, telling me what their experiences were. And after them coming to me over 1,000 times, I think I have a handle on it. You know, I think I know what I'm talking about and know what I'm experiencing. So as a social scientist, I sort of backed away from mainstream science because they're in left field a great deal of the time, and I cannot trust their work. So there's some areas that can be trusted, but certainly in terms of anthropology, they need a body, and that's not going to happen. I'm convinced that the government has a few bodies of Sasquatch because they've been working with a negative type of ET that has given them a limited amount of technology. But the Sasquatch say that these are lower lords that are really from the dark side. And so years ago, the more spiritual, and spirituality being respect for all living things, went to many leaders and appeared in their room and talked to them. They told me this, but nobody could stop anything. It's sort of like capitalism has almost become a political cancer where it's spread all over and everybody wants a bunch of materialism, and their egos all of a sudden become a part of that. They merge those two. So if somebody loses something, it's a tragedy. If somebody scratched their car or something, it's a big tragedy. I'm not into that kind of thing, and neither are the Sasquatch people. They're interested in what's in your heart. So we're going through a tremendous stage right now in the history of the planet where the planet's dying, and as they say in Revelations, there'll be wars and rumors of wars. Well, guess what? We've come to Revelations and now we're living it. Where it's going to end up, I don't know, but the Sasquatch are trying to connect and are connecting with more and more spiritual people, a lot of them through me because of different people that I meet, and then the Sasquatch following me will start, if they deem this person responsible and with a high enough vibration, they'll start talking with them and helping them the way they initially did eons ago. During the time of Lemuria and Atlantis. And these are not folklore civilizations. They tell me they're very, very real. They've told other people the same thing, that they exist. When divers went down in the outside of the Bahamas and found all these square blocks of stone at the bottom of the ocean, science says, no, it's nothing, it's just a natural formation. But in nature, everything is round. There is no squares, there are no rectangles in nature. And so why don't they get down and find out instead of being an armchair theorist and stop the nonsense of spreading rumors that aren't true, but he's the head of the anthropology department or psychology, so he must know, when they don't know. There's many anthropologists won't even leave to come out and look at tracks if you found tracks. They'll say, oh no, they're fake. No, he's fake. That scientist is a fake because he's not following the protocol of a scientist, which says you go out and you investigate and then you analyze and so on in order to find out really what it is. So these people are not doing their job. while they're pointing a crooked finger at others. So how can I trust science if they're doing that? So at least that aspect of it, I don't. So they started telepathing to me 38 years ago, and of course it's changed my life. I thought it was a one-time deal, you know. I said, well, I'll never tell anybody, that's for sure. The whole world knows now. 2 days later, they woke me up in my bedroom, and there were two Sasquatch standing there, but I could see through them. They were living apparitions, and they would talk to me. Then a few nights later, a different one came, and so on. And then those others came back, and they did this for close to 2 months, visiting me, waking me up at night. And so I could see through them, and one of them, the largest one, drifted down through the floor, and his face was 3 feet from my face. So I could see him very clearly, and when I moved, his pupils of his eyes were moving back and forth. So he was, you could see every wrinkle in his face, and he frowned when I rolled over to position myself better in bed. He turned like this, and he frowned, and almost like in a defensive kind of way, even though if I didn't, but if I reached out, my hand would go right through him. If he reached out to me, he'd be able to touch me physically. Because I look at it this way, we're physical dense, they're physical etheric, meaning they're multidimensional. They told me back in July of 1985 that they have access to 8 different dimensions. I got enough problems in this dimension. I don't know what they're doing, but they're very evolved beings. So they started talking to me, and I naively shared a lot of my information initially with mainstream researchers, thinking, boy, they're going to want to know this. This is a big revelation. They laughed at me. These are professional people. They just don't, some of them don't have a brain, I guess, to make fun of other people's research, laugh at them right to their face when they have themselves nothing to offer. And of course now I had so much information that I've written the 2 books, The Psychic Sasquatch and the UFO Connection, and the Sasquatch people and their interdimensional connection. And those titles tell exactly what that book's about. So some of these researchers, if they're pet theories, they love their pet theories so much that they become a reality, even though it's not. So that's another problem why people don't move forward. I used to really care, oh my God, they need to know this, and they know and they don't do anything. There's still some of them they claim don't want to hurt a Sasquatch, but why are they carrying rifles? I'm talking about high-powered rifles. So they lie to people. Not all of them, just a few. And people have told me they've kicked people off their property for lying and saying, no, I don't shoot, or I don't have a gun, when they had high-powered rifles in their truck. So the idea is to speak from the heart. This is a research of the heart, not of the head. I'm very heady myself, having 4 degrees and all that stuff, and being a research scientist. But when I start getting heady with them, they'll tell me, little brother, get out of your head, back into your heart, because the heart space is where everything is at. Being in touch with your feelings. That's why 75% of contactees are women. The other 25% are men. In Russia, they noted that they don't go to tough guys. That's the word they use, meaning anyone that's real macho, that's holding on to a lot of that stuff and is easily defensive and everything. They're not interested in trying to connect with them. They just want people going with the flow with unconditional love and trust in their heart, which sometimes is difficult, when especially people live in big cities and on freeways and stuff, people cutting you off and just all kinds of incidents going on that are very negative. So it's a challenge for us, but that's really where it's at. And I practice this all the time. I'm aware all the time, even after all these years, because there are people out there, as I said, that aren't very nice. And the only way to kind of nullify or neutralize some of their negative energy is to send them love. So, love and God are synonymous. There's nothing more powerful, like a bazooka shooting at them. Nothing's more powerful. It may not stop them in their tracks, but it's contributing to their healing. It's a concept that I've been reminded of several times, and when I've been too judgmental and to, want me to remember that concept because it is a spiritual law. It will slow you down or stop you from progressing. Now, there's one researcher out there that has done, I think, some excellent work. However, a lot of his work has been misapplied. And the reason it's been misapplied is that people are become missing in national parks and other areas too, but mostly in national parks. And they found some of the people dead and many different things. And one person, I think it was in the Smoky Mountains area, where I think it was a 12-year-old boy disappeared when he was right there 1 minute and then disappeared. And someone saw him on the back of a hairy being running away down into a valley like. And so they labeled him Sasquatch. Well, people don't know that there's many other beings out there, and the Sasquatch are not the beings that are taking these people. Now, if all of us knew, and I know some of it, but I know there's most of it I don't know, even though I know a lot, and that is this: there is a war going on, and the war is different than the way you think, between negative ETs and spiritual ETs. And our government has embraced one of those. You guess which ones, I won't say. And they are, these negative ETs have, the Sasquatch used the word bioengineered these other beings. They zapped a Sasquatch in the forest, took him, and you'll never see him again because he'll be controlled. They'll put electrodes in his brain and all that, and they will control him. But they also take DNA from him and from other beings from other planets. And they put together a being that can kill a Sasquatch. They can kill an ancient one. They can kill a guardian, that is the dog face or werewolf types. They're friendly, they just don't look friendly. They have less tolerance for us because of our negativity, most people. But they're very friendly. But this being that was bioengineered can kill any one of those easily. And he can cloak himself so he can walk up to a person not even see him, and grab the person and bring him inside the cloak, and he'll just disappear and never be found. So the negative ETs are blaming and want the blame onto the Sasquatch because the Sasquatch people want to help us. That was their original focus and goal, is to assist their little brothers. Why are we their little brothers? Because they said, from the ancient ones, they have taken, the ancient ones are the ones with the human faces, they have taken the DNA from there to make us. So we're not close like they think to the anthropoid apes. Our closest relative is the ancient ones. And that's why they feel an affinity for us and want to watch over us, because we were engineered, to have back problems and to not live as long as they do. But they can watch us through each generation and barely age. And I don't know, part of this is that the original ETs that engineered them made it so they live a few thousand years. Now to us that sounds outrageous. You know, if they lived to be 200, it would sound to some people be a little outrageous maybe. Because, you know, gorillas only live to be right around, you know, 45 or 50 or something like that. So they're making wrong comparisons. You know, one researcher said these are North American great apes, and they tell us we have nothing to do with the apes at all. So it's like a person maybe from New Guinea, and somebody says, "Oh, you're from Africa." And he says, "No, I'm from New Guinea." "Oh no, you have dark skin. You're from Africa." No, again, it's mislabeling, and this is what's going on. And the Sasquatch are being blamed for some of these disappearances, and they use the history to say they were cannibals, so they're still cannibals. No, go to the South Pacific. You know, I mean, the Fijian people were cannibals. You know, and all through New Guinea. Now, there are other tribes in the Amazon and New Guinea that have never seen a white man, still to this day. And some of them might still, if maybe in time of war or so forth, they might be cannibals. But it'd be very rare to find someone today in this world. I didn't say modern world because if we're warring all the time and we want to settle our differences with violence, we're not modern. Everybody should have health care free. Hey, we don't have that. Why? Because we're not modern. We don't have it together. So I'd like to see a restructured society based on Sasquatch culture. I think we'd be better off because they're so natural. So anyway, they've been mislabeled, and I'm saying they are not the ones that are going around killing people or kidnapping people. And they have kidnapped a few people in the past, as generally women, because they wanted a mate. And it's interesting because a majority of people that are kidnapped, women by them, they want to stay with them. So they don't want to come back because the life is too peaceful and not stressful, and anyway, all their needs are met. Yes. Now, over the years, I had met Dr. J Allen Hynek. He became world famous. And it's interesting because I used to read about him when I was in grade school because I read everything I could on UFOs. And he was an astronomer and so on, but I contacted him and let him know what I experienced with the Bigfoot UFO connection. And I thought, well, he gets calls all the time and contacted, you know, at least he knows that I did that. Gee, he called me back later that day and said, "Can I come up and visit you?" Well, I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was living in Chicago, so we met several times, and the first time was for 4.5 hours, explaining all this to him and how that they can disappear. So he said, "Oh yes, I'm familiar with the, quote, Cheshire Cat effect." If you know in Alice in Wonderland how the Cheshire Cat would disappear, then you just see his eyes. Well, does that sound familiar with the Sasquatch? Very definitely. I also knew Betty Hill, and the most famous abductee, and she experienced the Sasquatch, and the state police used to contact her to consult with her on anything that had to do with the Bigfoot UFO connection, which was several times. And this is back in the 70s that this was going on. So it's been around a long time, but nobody wants to talk about it or report it because it sounds so kooky. Hey, life is kooky in many ways, so, you know, it's okay to tell the truth no matter what it is. So people don't like the truth, the universal truth, and they should move to another planet or something, to satisfy their fantasies. So 3 times I've seen Sasquatch dematerialize in front of me. And I'm really, this is all a part of the interdimensional nature of them. They've touched me 6 times while in another dimension. Because keep in mind, again, apparently when you go to a lighter dimension, you can interact and touch and affect things in the lower dimension. But the lower dimensional people living there cannot access or touch or recruit or interact with anything in a higher dimension unless they want to. And of course they want to. I've seen ghosts before, and when Comanche, my black lab, died, he came to me 5 different times. And first night he appeared to me after he passed away, and I was just devastated. He was 13 years old, and the Sasquatch told me they sent him to me because they knew I'd go through some hard times and that he would be there as a companion. But since he was a little tiny puppy, just a shrimp of a dog, he started reading my mind right from the very beginning. And then as he got older, he would talk to me and tell me, I want daddy, I want water, daddy, and things like that. And I hear him just like you're hearing me. So all that changed me. A bear talked to me, a wolf, a snake, 3 times a raven, and twice a hawk spoke to me. So there's just some kind of a universal thing going on, which has to do with what the Native American people, the First Nations people, and the forest people are saying, that there's this great oneness and we're all connected. We disconnect ourselves consciously, ourselves out of fear and so on, like especially the forest. It's a very healing place. But, one of the well-known Indians from the 1800s said, the forest has always been our friend and our home. It gives us food and shelter, and we can make things. And it never became wilderness. It never became wild until the white people showed up. So in a way, that's true, isn't it? How we're destroying the forests, and the forests are the ones that give us oxygen. And the oceans, the phytoplankton, also gives us huge amounts of oxygen. Well, because of Fukushima, the Pacific Ocean is dying, and the animals are dying all along the coast, the marine mammals, the starfish, all kinds of this stuff is going on up and down the west coast of the North American continent. So we're getting less oxygen all the time, and so little at a time we're destroying this whole planet, all in the name of give people jobs, and we got to make money, and I need a second car and a motorcycle, so I got to do this, that kind of nonsense. But that's how insecure people get if they don't have these things. So yes, we need work and jobs and stuff, but not at the expense of the environment, our Mother Nature, our Earth Mother. Yeah, a retired government official with a very high clearance contacted me. His wife did years ago, 10 years ago or so, and said they had some experiences and that I should come out and visit them. Well, they lived out here somewhere, I won't say where, and it was a very wild place in a cabin. And one day while he was building the porch, finishing off the porch of this cabin, he felt someone watching him, and he looked up, and it was summertime. It was about 85 degrees, and it was about 11:30 in the morning. And he said he looked up, and there's a Sasquatch standing looking at him. I believe he said just about 150 feet away. And it started walking towards him. And it walked right up to him and turned and never looked at him. Just walked right up to him. And just as it walked past him, literally a few feet, it turned and smiled, looked at him and smiled, and then walked through the side of the house. So he merely took a couple quick steps to peek over to see him walking, but he wasn't there. He had already dematerialized. Again, people don't know that they're interdimensional, so they get confused. Later, I was going to come and visit, and two ETs appeared in their bedroom and said, we'll help Kewaunee when he comes, and tell him this and that and so on, and left a message for me. So also, in one of their fields, they went out around 7 o'clock in the evening in the summertime, and it was just really nice out. And the small field with a few small trees and bushes, they noticed these dragonflies. And they said, gee, look at them. They're amassing just, about 50, 60 feet away. And there's more and more. And they look at it and say, isn't that strange? I've never seen them in groups like that. And they looked and looked, and one of them came over to them and hovered there and looked at him. They were fairies. And he says he couldn't believe it. He'd never believed in them. But there's a whole bunch, and they were coming out of a portal. As the more they focused, they could see them streaming out of a portal. So these people had some great experiences, and they didn't want to tell anyone. I've never mentioned their name and never will, because it's their private experience. But in terms of data, they're just another person that quietly never told anybody, never wanted their name out there. So how many other people, maybe what I've done with this 408 percipients that I documented, maybe that's just 1% of what's going on. We don't know. 10%, 8%, I don't know. But, I don't think very many people want to talk about it, and it's up to me and to encourage people to speak openly about this. There's nothing wrong with reality. Yeah, in 1984, I was living in Oregon, and I was coming back from work. I was a consultant for a company there, and I noticed, it was just getting dark, but I noticed this spaceship following me. When I stopped at a general store to get some gas, because I lived way in the country, it stopped and just hovered. I got back in the car and headed for my place, and as soon as I got where I had to turn off, I was going to turn off the road, and I thought, well, they're going to keep going, but they didn't. They followed me all the way home. I lived at the edge of a dog leg, like the paw of a dog leg that came out of the Oregon coastal Siskiyou Mountains. And this dog leg just stretched, it looked like it was excellent for bobcat and mountain lion. And I did see a lot of herds of elk in that area, but it was just a long spine of cliffs. And this spaceship landed on top. I watched it. The thing is, when I got home, I ran in the house and got my zoom lens binoculars, and I watched it slowly go down and land, but I could still see the glow. Well, I went in the house. It was 5 minutes to 11. I remember all of this. And put the groceries away, because I was grocery shopping, and went right to bed. Half a minute after I went to bed, I heard a thumping of a very heavy man walking outside. He just was dropped off in the spaceship. And then it stopped by my window, and I listened, and I said, oh, I guess he's gone. Then all of a sudden I heard thump, thump, in my living room of a very, very heavy man walking down the hall towards me. And it kind of got me nervous, even though I'm not afraid of them, but I just was kind of eerie, And So all of a sudden I looked up and he's standing right there looking down on me, but I could see through him. And I said, "Oh, it's you, and welcome." And I realized it was cold. I had not started the fire, but I just wanted to go to bed, and so I turned and grabbed one of the blankets to pull over me, and I looked up, he was gone. And I looked around and said, "Where is he?" And all of a sudden, the end of the bed, kalunk, he sat on the bed, and my whole bed went up and down. I jumped on that one. And he was sitting there smiling, and he had just been dropped off, and he wanted to let me know that he's going to be watching me, and he was an ancient one. So then he just disappeared. I didn't know what happened, but he disappeared. And then probably less than a half a minute, I heard a thump, 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 walking away again towards the dog leg. So I've got lists and lists and lists of these kinds of experiences from them. I've seen 7 different races of ETs. I've been very fortunate. And you know, some of them are strange looking, but who cares? You know, I've seen a lot of strange looking humans too. So, you know, so you just be kind and again walk in unconditional love. Another time I was camping out in an area where I discovered where they were at. It's very easy for me to find them. I can find them anywhere in the world within minutes. So it's a gift I have. So it doesn't make any difference. But I found an area and went out there. And this was also in Oregon. And they came out of the woods, this ancient one, and he stayed invisible. But when he walked up to me, the leaves and a few sticks were moving right down by his feet, of course, where his foot was. So we were talking while he was invisible, and I said, "It's okay to show me yourself," but he never did, and so this is just some of the things that they do. And I said, "Gee, earlier on I saw an orange-colored spaceship, and it came from behind this mountain here." And he said, "Yes." He says, "Our friends, the Star People, dropped off one of my people. His mate was staying with us because he broke his arm. He slipped on a cliff and broke his arm, and our friends, the Star People, took him to heal him." So these are some of the things that they talk about. When I had liver cancer in 1990 and 91, and I was dying, I was living in Flagstaff, Arizona, and at the time I thought it was okay. That's life, you know. I had zero fear, and I met an Indian medicine woman, and she invited me to talk about spiritual matters and stuff, and she lived in Sedona. So I went down to Sedona, and we sat there and talked, and I still remember this. From 11 o'clock on, I was yawning a lot while talking to her. And then about 10 minutes to 12, in fact, I didn't realize time went by so fast, I said, "Well, I better get going and get back to Flagstaff." She said, "You look pretty tired to me, and that road is dangerous, and yeah, don't go back." She said, "Stay in my guest room." And I said, "Okay." So I did. As soon as I shut the light off and got in the bed and then shut the light off, there were 4 6.5-foot kachinas at the foot of my bed. And they started telling me about my life and why I had liver cancer. And they told me how to heal myself of liver cancer. 2 days later, I collapsed, and I had quickly purchased this stuff and started taking it. And I took it for 5.5 weeks. And when I got a checkup, there was no cancer. So they've done this several times. In 2012, I had a brain tumor, and I used certain herbs to help people. And I helped this woman, and it dissolved. So I started taking that, and the Sasquatch said, "Well, it's too going too slow, we'll take care of it. So the ETs came and dissolved it for me and everything. So I was very fortunate. And they never asked me if I had insurance. Yeah, Henry Winkler back in 1991 had a UFO documentary. It was one of the very first. And in fact, I never saw one previous. Well, I was working in a clinic in Tucson, and I made sure that I didn't schedule anyone for that evening, because I was always working into the evening and so forth, and because people were freed up more in the evening. So I was busy all the time, but I said, I really want to see this. So I made sure that I didn't schedule anyone, and I came back early, and it was from 10 to 11 o'clock at night. So the commentator, I was staying in Muhammad Ali's castle that he built there just west of Tucson, and he sold it. I guess it was 24 acres, and he had a tennis court and a swimming pool and all that. So he was impressed when he was in England. He stayed in a castle there, so he had one built, and then later sold, and I rented a portion of it. So at that time, and anyway, they had high ceilings and everything, and I came home, put on the TV, and sat down. I shut off all the lights and just wanted to concentrate, just kind of enjoy myself and relax a bit, because I'd been really working hard 6 and 7 days a week. So the commentator said, well, tonight we're going to be talking about close encounters of the first kind, where people see spaceships at a distance. Then we'll be, the second quarter, we'll be speaking on close encounters of the second kind, where it's more close up and so on. And as he went through this, finally he said, and the final quarter, he said, we will meet the aliens. And he said it with this gusto, and this giant hand grabbed me right by the left waist, and I jumped right off my seat, at least a foot. I tell you, and all I heard was two Sasquatches laughing like crazy. And to meet the aliens, and it was perfect timing on their behalf, and I turned around and said, oh, it's only you guys, and they laughed even harder, Yeah, a lot of them want to know more about us. They're people, so some of them are brilliant, some of them are not as educated, some of them are in between, and so forth, even though they have powers and they have more knowledge than the average person, because they know the history of the planet. They know all that stuff that we don't know. And of course, in Bo's books, the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, now we have book 2 out, which I encourage people to get, that really have an understanding of what's going on in this world. You certainly don't want to go to the news. The TV, one of the evening news shows, because you won't get the real scoop. Yeah, it's interesting, this interdimensionalism, that I had a friend come to visit me and stay for 3 days, and she slept on the couch and I slept up in the loft, and she had some Sasquatch experiences, so we would discuss these things, and then later in the daytime we'd go hiking. Well, I told her how at that time, and not at the place I'm living at now, but at a different place 50 miles from Seattle, where they built a portal 125 feet from my front door. And so they would come in and out, so they were there all the time. And sometimes they'd wake me up at night and just say hello. They were walking through from someplace else on their way to the portal, and they would just tell me hello, wake me up, and I'd say, oh, it's you, hi, God bless you, and just roll over and go back to sleep. So I told this person they're there. She said, oh, no, they're not here. That's ridiculous. I said, of course they are. I mean, I explained, but for whatever reason, she didn't believe me. And so I thought that was odd, because she had had experiences before. Not many, but she had some, and the telepathy as well. So the last night there, I said to them, would you please come inside tonight and make some noise or do something to let my friend know that you're here, you're really here. And they said they would, because there were 2 teenagers in the group of the clan that was there, and they liked doing stuff like that, you know. So I went to bed, and I fell right to sleep. I woke up the next morning, and I walked down the steps from the loft, and my friend sat up in bed and said, hey, on the couch there, and said, gee, what a night that was, huh? And I said, why, what happened? She said, well, you know what happened. She says, they were stomping all through here, down here, her dog was growling, and she went up in the loft and was making one hell of a noise. And she says, I know they're here. And she said, but it must have woke you up. I said, I didn't hear anything. What they do is they made sure I stayed asleep. They have that power to keep you asleep or put you to sleep. So they did, so I could rest, and it wasn't my thing. I didn't need to hear them, but she did, and she said, okay, they're here, I believe you, you know. But they didn't show themselves. They stayed interdimensional. Okay, I'd like to show some slides and give you an idea of interdimensionalism, because I have them on the slides. Can we get that started? Up here in the left-hand corner, do you see a woman's face? That's an ancient one. She's about 7 foot tall. Now, here, there's the jaw, mouth, nose, left eye, and this right eye is covered by foliage. This is a Sasquatch, not an ancient one. Down here is a guardian or a dog face or werewolf type. You can see his snout there, here. Small ears on each side. And they're all on the property that I lived on, just outside of Seattle. So they are all working together, and they want us to work together with them. Now, what whoop. Okay. This is from Australia, 1936. If you look, right here, there's the head, shoulders, there's his bicep, forearm, his leg, and his knee right here. Sitting beside these 2 loggers, and they didn't know he was there. So here we have interdimensionalism, and they can come and do that and just hang out and be around you, and you would never know it. So they did not know it, but I found this on the internet, and I think it's worth showing. Okay, this is from Arkansas, from a woman that contacted me. Once again, my apologies, because the photograph itself or on the computer is very clear. But do you see this figure here? It's really clear, again, not up here. But the woman was having experiences and seeing the Sasquatch, and she wanted to get a picture. So she waited with her camera inside the house. Then she heard a thumping sound. She said, oh, they're here. She ran outside, and she kept hearing the thumping of something walking, but couldn't see anything. So she took the picture anyway. Well, actually, there's 4 Sasquatch. There's another one over here which you cannot see, and there's two more. The big face here and a big face here. I'm sorry you can't see those. But the point I'm making again is they can just switch and go interdimensional anytime they want. Okay, this is from a man from Indiana, or Iowa, I guess, Iowa, who made this. It's a mannequin, a 7-foot mannequin, and he was having experiences with them, and they asked him to stop following us and leave us alone. And that's when he spent $15,000 way back in the late 70s and produced this. And he used to go around at the different carnivals and fairs and stuff and show it at different events. That's my Bigfoot beside another Bigfoot. This was taken in Texas. Okay, a woman took this in Idaho. She saw a Sasquatch crossing a stream, and she pulled up, she had a camera and snapped a picture. But he knew she had a camera, so he dematerialized. This is probably the rarest picture in the world. It caught him in between dimensions. So, and there was something else over here that dematerialized as well. We don't quite know, but the energy from that area was very powerful. And he was crossing the stream to get maybe to his mate or another Sasquatch. There's more of a close-up of him. You can see the outline of slightly hunched. Again, interdimensionalism. So this here is an ancient one. This was taken in Colorado in the Santa Crista Mountains by someone that did not want their name out there, and gave me permission to use it. He was walking along, he had a camera, and he was with a friend hiking. And they heard all this noise coming, and they said, oh, geez, some elk, I guess, because they saw elk tracks everywhere. But when they waited, about a 5-foot Sasquatch ran in between here, that open space. And then he quickly pulled up because he heard more noise and snapped this one. He had the kind of camera that if he kept it down, it would have kept flashing one after another, because one about 10 foot, this one's about 7.5 foot, he reckoned. The other one about 10 foot came after this one, but he never got it because he put the camera back down. So, but this gives you an idea. See, he has a round head. He doesn't have a sagittal crest like a Sasquatch. And he has a human face and a beard. Okay, this is taken from the Roger Patterson film that was taken October 20th, 1967 at Bluff Creek, California. And a researcher in Russia named Dmitry Bayanov sketched this. And so he took his time so he would be able to see the face, because you still can't see the face, but little at a time he took pieces of the features and put them together. And this is a female Sasquatch. I thought he did an excellent job. Okay, this is a 65 million year old Sasquatch track. And if you notice, the person who took the picture, his foot is right there. His little teeny foot beside this. Now this is a 24-inch track, and it was taken from limestone from the Biloxi River in southern Texas, where there's dinosaur tracks everywhere. And it showed either the dinosaur was following the Sasquatch, or the Sasquatch was following the dinosaur. But they're tracked side by side, looking like they're following, one's following the other. And no scientist from the closest university would go and look at it. So again, they don't do their job. So this dentist was a lay archaeologist. It was his hobby, and he followed one of the tracks that went underneath this tremendous flat slab that who knows how long back fell on there, thousands or millions of years ago. And it weighed several tons. But what he noticed in the creek bed is that they came out the other side, these two tracks of a Sasquatch and of a bipedal dinosaur. So he hired a crane, and they got it down there. I don't know how they did that, but they did it, and he lifted the slab. When they lifted the slab, obviously nobody can lift the slab and fake it, because that's what the scientists are saying. It's all fake. Somebody just carved them just to mess over your head. But here were the tracks underneath that giant slab that continued off the other side, meaning they were genuine. So I asked the Sasquatch people about this. Is this from the hairless giants, or is this really from you? He said, yes, that's from our people. He said, we were there during the ages of the dinosaurs. And he said, and I said, so they're not the other giants, the hairless ones? He said, no, they came much later, before your people. He said, they were seeded, and then later your people were seeded. So they used the word seeded, because they said we were bioengineered, or, to make us who we are. So, okay, this is a fresco taken, I believe this is from Germany. There's some in England, France, and there might be some in Belgium and some other places. I'm unsure. But there's hundreds of them all through Europe. And why is this man covered in hair? Wait a minute, he's got a human face. But there's something odd here. He really looks like he was a real person. Well, guess what? He was. He was an ancient one with a human face and so on. They were in Europe, and they did a lot of healing for people. In one village or county somewhere, a little kingdom, took a 8 or 9 foot ancient one, again, not Sasquatch, and had made him king, because he came into the village, was friendly, and was healing people. So they said, we want you to be our leader, because he was giving them advice and guiding this village. So they've been around a long time, and there's so many people that are in denial. Someone should tell them that denial's not a river in northern Egypt, that we have to wake up and to really focus on what's going on around us. Okay, I left for the day. This was in July 2nd of 2003. I went into the Cascades, and I asked them before I left if the ETs would show themselves so I could get a photograph, and this is one that they gave me. Not the best one in the world, but it really surprised me. And I saw another one earlier that day, but it went too fast. And I telepathed to it. I said, you went too fast. You need to either come back or show me yourself again, because I didn't get a picture. And later on they did. I mean, they have a sense of humor, and so I play on that humor often. And being I get a little corny once in a while. And now, this was taken in northeast Texas, and this is a Sasquatch. See the sagittal crest? Here, the peaked head. Here it shows even more. And this was on a trail cam. They asked the people to take the trail cams down because they couldn't move freely. They thought they could, but he had five trail cams up. So this is one of them that he took. This being has a monkey face, but he's not a monkey, he's not an ape, he's a Sasquatch. But he had a corn cob in his mouth. He's just coming out of the garden and stepping over a barbed wire fence. Now, it was simple. When you see this, I've got the film of this, and he just steps over it with such ease. I wouldn't even dare try to, that part comes up to about here. I would get hung up for sure. I wouldn't even want to try. So this is the same one. You can see more of the monkey face. One moment. Yeah, and here he's got a corn cob in his mouth. So the people ask them, what do you want? You come into our garden, we'll plant next year more whatever you want. And they like watermelon and cucumbers and stuff, so they would plant all that and tell them to come in and help themselves. And that's the way to do it. They weren't trying to trick them. They weren't trying to get their pictures or anything, but they did this one time, and they allowed him to do that. Then they said, no, don't do it again.
I have a question. If you could go back to that slide, please. Is that a face in the water behind there? It looks like a narrow face on Mars.
No. This is in somebody's garden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I know some of that looks strange. This is the close-up of the dog face, or the guardians. He's guarding the portal, so no negative entities would come through to harass me while I was writing my second book. So this is some of the protection they give. I don't know. There's the tip of his nose. There's his left eye. There's his right eye. He's got two little ears here. There's his mouth and his long snout. Does everyone see that? Yeah. I'm sorry?
How tall are they?
Well, people say, they're between 7 and 10 feet tall, and that's true. Most of the encounters are beings about that tall, but they've seen them 12, 14, 16 feet tall. And in Indiana, they brought in from outer Mongolia these 20 and 22 footers. I'm not going to tell you any more about it, but some people out there was doing research, and they were protecting them and stuff for whatever reason. But so there are huge ones. The conservative researchers, the mainstream people, claim they're only about 7 foot. Some of them 7 or 8 feet, but they vary. They really do. Later, in just a little while when I finish, you can ask me some questions here. I'm getting close to the end.
We have a microphone here for questions.
Okay, this is from my book, but this is what they look like, very sober-faced, and he might be just as happy as can be, but looks like he, is having a bad day, but he's not. This is how they are. This is a mannequin that was taken, I think it was in Newport, Oregon, and this is a researcher here that's had experiences with him, and he had the picture taken and he showed it to one of his guides, Sasquatch guides, and he said, gee, this looks just like one of the ones I know even, So this is an excellent rendition of the Sasquatch. No, I'm not going to. Let's see. One moment. Okay. This one, an engineer whose hobby is horticulture, went to Victoria on Vancouver Island in 1986 on vacation. And he went to Bouchart's Gardens, because of all the flowers and the different plants. And he was taking pictures, and he captured this picture, but I blew this up. You could barely see it, a dot up in the corner, but you could see the shape and the color. So he let me have the excuse me, the photograph, and he signed it and gave me permission, saying that do not ever mention my name in association with that. And I said, well, this is important to me. He said, that's nothing, but I don't want to be involved in it. He wouldn't admit it, what he was looking at, but it didn't exist and has nothing to do with him. At that time, he was just moving into a nursing facility. He was 82 years old, and the person helping him move, he had these photographs out that knew me, and that's how he found it and notified me. Okay, this also is in Texas. Now the stride sometimes is 5 and 6 feet, just their natural stride, not even running. So you see there's a hat on the right-hand side of the first footprint. But these are excellent prints. And it was just a casual walk. There's no sliding in reading the tracks, and I can track. I have wilderness skills, and I was raised hunting, fishing, trapping, and was an accomplished taxidermist by age 16. This was all through the 50s when I was raised, when I was a kid. So I'll be 74 next month. Okay, this man here is from Russia. He's a Russian woodcutter. And he was out cutting wood, and a snowman, they call him the snowman there, but it's a Yeti type, appeared and started talking to him. And this woodcutter is also an artist. And he said, may I sketch you? Now he had a pencil, but no paper, so he did it on paper birch, on bark birch. So he sketched it, and he stayed there for over an hour and let him sketch all the details. And that's the being that he sketched and talked to. I asked Dr. Igor Burtsev, a colleague of mine, to find out, because he was in touch with this man, if he would find out what they discussed over that hour. And he tried to get a hold of him again, and finally it was difficult, and finally he did, because the guy's in southern Siberia, okay? So he got a hold of him, and he said, no, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I won't give you any more information, which is sad, but he just didn't want the notoriety, which I understand, but Igor would not have, told anyone. But anyway, I think this is excellent. It really gives us an idea of these beings and these forest people. So this is it. And I have all kinds of data, but right now I've given you an idea of their interdimensional nature. And if anyone has any questions, please step up to the microphone, and I'll be happy to answer them as best of my ability. Please don't rush or stumble over each other getting up. Lights, action.
It's Kewaunee. I just
speak loud. Speak into it. Please.
Just a question about the dog people. How old do they live? How many years do they live for?
Well, they said they live a few thousand years, and that they follow us over a whole several generations. So they told me they were there at the moment of my birth, and I thought, well, why would they want to do that? Don't they have something else to do or whatever, But you know what I mean. They said, well, it was important to us because of your mission.
Okay.
And, I think to mainstream researchers that are not on the spiritual path, I'm just this hokey guy that's in their way, that's is hurting their credibility. You know, I'm a kook that came out kind of thing. But to say they live, a few thousand years is true based on what I understand, but I can only go by what they tell me and what they're telling other people, which match up to what they're telling me. But they've never lied to me. So I don't think that they want to spend all this time, just like when they dictated to Sunbow, and he transcribed page after page after page after page of all this information.
Right.
Why would they do that unless it was something of great importance? So that's why it is important. And it's communication. It's the key to everything. Communication and the understanding that they are interdimensional. So I'm trying to demonsterize them. I'm not sure that's a word in the dictionary, but it is now. And because they're just, these people don't give up. They are so obsessed with destroying another living thing for their own ego gratification. They don't belong out there because they don't know what they're doing. They're dangerous people, many of them.
My second question, you had mentioned in your talk about the dog people protecting the portal. Is that more their job is to be protection of
I'm
the
sure
portals?
I'm sure they have
more
other
than
jobs.
The Sasquatch people?
Yeah, at that time that was their job, and it's one of their jobs, one of their main jobs. But one person had a spaceship land right near them, and this was in the wilderness, and walked up slowly to it, but 3 dog-faced ones came out of the ship and invited him in. They were very friendly, and he peeked in one room, and it was all minerals and rocks. He peeked in another room, they were all plants, and they were doing some kind of research. Keep in mind, back in the days of the ancient Greeks, when you have the centaurs and all the other weird things that it's just folklore, of course, right? No, the gods that they talked about, on Mount Olympus and all this stuff, they're talking about the ETs. And the ETs, bioengineered the centaur and all these other beings. And so all this stuff is real. It's just that science is so infantile in how they're approaching nature that it has to come out through the back door and not directly from science.
Perfect, thank you.
This is a great opportunity, Kewaunee. I'm Max Guiley, I'm the videographer, and I have been waiting for a long time, and I don't know why I didn't ask you last year, but this is a really quick encounter that my wife at the time and I had out in the Sican area in the Oregon outback. We're driving at dusk on a gravel road, and out of the corner of our eyes came a buck deer running right at the car. It looked like it was going to hit the right side view mirror, and then it ran right through the engine compartment, and it looked like if I could have reached through the windshield, I could have grabbed an antler. It was kind of a yellowish color, and then it went out through the left fender, out through the left headlight, took out the energy, whatever it was, took out the left high beam, just poof, and then it disappeared. Was that some kind of an initiation?
You say it went through the solidness of your car.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a chance that was a shape-shifting Sasquatch. I'm not saying it was, because I don't positively know, but they're the only beings that can do stuff like that.
Yeah, it was really...
Okay, and I mean, even shape-shifting, when you bring it up to a, conservative researcher, they'll, giggle, it's into fantasy land again. I mean, these beings have been around for so long. If they were bioengineered by them about 100 million years ago, then they've got to be 100 million years ahead of us. hey, wake up. It's not that they're just little magicians and can do a little bit of this or that. They can do big time stuff.
Well, this is one of those things, you know, you look over, we both looked at each other, did you see that? Which was very validating for both of us. Yes, I did. So, and we all see things, and it's really nice when we have a companion, a witness, to keep us from feeling like we're losing our sanity. And I really am glad that I had an opportunity to ask the expert.
Yeah, I believe if that's what you saw, that's the only thing that is a shape-shifting Sasquatch that could do something like that.
Thank you so much.
Hi there. Before you mentioned
Louder.
Before you mentioned that you came across 7 different types of extraterrestrials before.
Okay.
Could you talk a little bit about the different types?
Okay. Yes, I've seen 7 different kinds of ETs, and the first ones were when I have a very serious back problem, and when my back went and I was unable to walk, I had to just lay in bed all day long. I was basically in a wheelchair, but sitting was the worst, and I could not walk, but sitting hurt my back even more. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain, mine was a 10.5. So I had neighbors and friends come over to do my laundry and then to bring food and stuff. I was really in a bad way. And I asked the ETs if they would come and heal me. I kept telepathing for 2 days, and all of a sudden there were these 3 4-foot tall, 3.5 to 4 foot tall little beings, but they had spacesuits on. So they weren't the typical grays. Some people say, oh, they were the grays, I guess, but they're not. And there's some that look similar to grays, just like if you had a Japanese person, a Korean person, a Chinese person, a Vietnamese person, and so on, lined up, the average person said, well, I think they're all Chinese or they're all Japanese because of the similarities, but the cultures and the language are totally different. So they healed me. The next morning I got up and walked, 0 pain. So that was the most wonderful thing they could have ever done. So they were not that strange looking at all. There was one that came to me that looked like Spider-Man in the face, but it was his real face. He had that chiseled look almost with those kind of eyes and everything, and he walked right through the wall and came right up to me. I was in bed, and he looked at me, and then he went sort of, like, take a good look, and I was just got off the phone, and the guy said to me, well, if ETs are coming to you, you need to tell them, I'd like to see what you look like if they talk to you a lot and you don't see them every time. And I hung up and went to bed, and this guy came. I never saw him again, but he was really interesting looking. Let's see. I'm trying to see back here. There's ones that were about 6 foot tall. It's hard to describe the faces, sorry, other than they look different. I can't, they're different sizes, and they came at different times. And I also count the what do I want to say here? What is it here? One moment. The Kachinas. The Kachinas actually are ETs, and they are. When they came, the reason they came to me is because they're ETs, but they live inside of the mountain there, outside of Flagstaff. And people think, well, I don't know about that, but that mountain's hollow, and I've seen I was privy to know, which I still know it's there because I've been there several times, a city, underground city in Oregon. And you can hear everything going on. I walked about a mile away from there, and there was a lava tube that extended. And I went where these rocks were on the side of a small hill, and I took my foot and hit it as hard as I could, and it went dang, 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 hollow down below. So I took out a stethoscope and laid it on the rock, and I could hear people walking and clanging of different tools and things underground. This is the middle of the wilderness. There's several of these, and I was told, I know where there's several of them actually, but I don't tell people because they don't need to know. Do you have a question?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know, why do you think
Speak a little louder.
Why do you think extraterrestrials contact people like you and other people like you? What qualities does it take as a human to attract extraterrestrials to come into your life?
Okay, they're attracted to people of a high vibrational frequency, and they can pick these people out easily and go right to them because they're closer to their vibrational frequency. They want people, these kinds of people are very compassionate, are very empathetic towards others, very sensitive. And these are the people that they approach most of the time. If some of these people have not been opened up or exposed to any of this, and they go to them, they're good people, and they go to them, and just interacting with them will open them up to this. Then the person wants to be more spiritual and be on the path and starts doing more things. He keeps raising his spiritual vibration. Like if you went to a nursing home and sat in a couple times a week and read to somebody that couldn't see very good anymore and would want to want to hear a story and be read to, or help a neighbor who's hard to get around, and you go shopping with him or take him shopping, so on. Reaching out to others is the most important thing. Dr. Wayne Dyer noticed in a study that when people give money to like a homeless person, that homeless person's energy and whole vibration just raises. But they also noticed it did on the person giving, and so it changes people. And that's important. So if you don't have to turn into a saint or anything, but certainly, Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama are some of my heroes, spiritual heroes, and that I look to. Dr. Wayne Dyer certainly is. A lot of information I got from him that parallel what the Sasquatch are saying. So listen to the tapes, watch the DVDs of Dr. Wayne Dyer, and take notes, put them aside and apply it, and then a month later go back and do it all over again to reinforce that, because his information and my information is only as good to the degree of which you apply it to your life. To say, hey, that's cool, that's neat, and then don't do anything, then you'll stay static, you'll stay the same.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, well, you have one more question.
I wanted to confer with you a little bit further, being that you've broadened our horizons. I've been alone in Seattle for the past 3 years. But in my meditation, I receive thoughts and images of places to go and investigate, such as the earth mounds, the ones in Ohio that continue clear on down to South America. Yeah. Clearing to South America. And some of these dwellings are huge. A few that I've run into are rocks that are greater than those that were the Incas.
Yeah, we can't build any of that today even. We don't have the equipment or the knowledge.
Right, but these were there
Thou-
thousands of years.
Yep.
But anyway, these are coming to me now, and how would this be relating, broaden my history of how, is it the ancient ones that are helping me, or what? I just wanted to share with these guys, you might be alone wherever you're at, but these thoughts that come to you from somebody.
Yes, they also, what they're doing, Rusty, is they're prodding you more. They want to get you more involved. That's why you should move over here. Yes, because we miss you a lot, but yes, they'll come into your dreams, but they use the dream state. It's not like a regular dream, but it's the dream state, and they contact people there. So listen to that. If they come into your dream, just what you had a dream of one, well, pay attention right away or write it down, because it may not be just a regular dream. They can concoct a dream by using the dream state to get messages across where you're not afraid or you don't hear them get spooked or anything. And so they're trying to contact you more. They want you to get more involved. So again, the dream state is one of them. Thank you for letting me share all this, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Yes, and also, Rusty, I just want to add to that, too, that now is a time where the earth and human consciousness is shifting into higher dimensions, and we're becoming more in touch with who we are. It's encoded in our DNA. So things that we have revelations and things that we feel very drawn to, it's quite possible that we have a history with that. You might have, your ancient self might have helped build those mounds, and that's why you're seeking that out. So, yes. So we are going to go ahead and do lunch now. I was mistaken. It's not pizza today. There was a little communication. Pizza will be tomorrow, but we have a lentil soup and veggies. So it's a vegetarian soup and rolls and salad available. And just $5 a plate, so, or bowl, or both, or whatever. So anyway, if Jody is in the kitchen setting up, so it'll take a few minutes to get that prepared, but anybody that wants some delicious yummies, just go ahead and kind of line up in that area here in a few minutes after you take a little break. All right, thank you. Oh, yes, okay, so we have lunch scheduled until 1:30. What time is it? 12:35. Okay, so let's still try to make it back by 1:30. If we're a little bit late, that's all right, but we'll try to keep it on schedule and be back at 1:30. Thanks, guys.